Here today with the 6 most surprising running backs in terms of the disparity between preseason ADP and where they currently rank in PPR scoring, their stories, if it will continue, and what exactly to make of it in fantasy football land, all coming up right now. First up is the current king of all the fantasy RBs, overall RB1 Raheem Mostert, sported an RB48 preseason ADP, guys, but as we saw out there in that 70-point massacre against the Broncos, Raheem Mostert is a huge part on the ground and even in the pass game inside of the most lethal offense in the entire NFL. And at this point, guys, we gotta give Mostert his flowers for quite literally now being the most efficient rusher in NFL history. Among all running backs with at least 500 career carries, Mostert's average of 5.42 yards per rush clears everyone else in NFL history. Shout out to Bo Jackson, Jamal Charles, Nick Chubb, and even Gus the Bus Edwards for rounding out that top 5. I understand there's going to be a lot of people out there that simply want to attribute Mostert's success to getting to play inside the ever well-schemed offenses of Kyle Shanahan and Mike McDaniel. But man, you start pulling up that next-gen stats leaderboard for the fastest ball carriers of not only 2023, but even in their entire history, and you're going to see Mostert's name littered across the top, even now in this season at the ripe age of 31 years old. Overall, Mostert has racked up 319 total yards and not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, 7 total touchdowns through just 180 minutes of action. That is incredibly impressive and not something we should be expecting to go away anytime soon. Yes, we will get Jeff Wilson coming off of IR, presumably in week 5, and rookie speedster Devin Achane certainly proved what he was capable of during his also incredibly explosive week 3 action. More on him in just a little bit. But seriously, guys, overall, Mostert remains locked in as an upside RB1 thanks to the reality that he should continue to see 15 plus combined carries and targets more weeks than not inside of the single most productive offense in the NFL. Up next, we have Colts running back Zack Moss, who didn't even qualify for a preseason ADP, aka he was undrafted more times than not, yet currently stands as the RB13 in total PPR points after only playing 2 of the first 3 games of the season. But you know what? When you rack up an RB5 and an RB10 finish to start out, those things tend to accumulate in a hurry. But overall, guys, 252 total yards and a pair of touchdowns on the ground. Moss is balling out in Indy on the stat sheet, and guess what? You put the film on and the guy is killing it with the eye test as well. Overall, Moss is tied with none other than Christian McCaffrey for the most forced missed tackles on the ground this season. Again, reminder, this has only come in 120 minutes of action. I would love to be a fly on the wall for the next running back contract Zoom meeting they put on, because I have a feeling Zack Moss walking into that might be akin to when Tommy was about to be made in Goodfellas. R.I.P. Tommy. So yeah, other than Moss really not helping Jonathan Taylor's cause in getting that new contract, he has been a huge bright spot for a Colts offense that has largely surpassed expectations this season, especially on that offensive line. Even without Anthony Richardson for the bulk of week 2 and all of week 3, this is still a unit posting top 6 marks in yards before contact per carry, a far cry from the unit that we saw really struggle for most of 2022. For week 4 specifically, fire up Moss as a legit fantasy football RB1. That's life when you posted 98% and 76% snap rates on top of that aforementioned world-beating efficiency with making defenders miss on the ground. The real question, guys, comes into week 5 and beyond, when the giant elephant should be back in the room in the form of Jonathan Taylor. Now, it's not a guarantee he'll be healthy by then due to that ankle injury. That said, I do tend to think it's a bit more of a contractulitis issue as opposed to anything truly medically wrong. So, week 5 and beyond, sure seems likely that Jonathan Taylor will be back to being the Colts' lead running back. That said, if Moss keeps playing this well, perhaps he could siphon away double-digit combined carries and targets per week and carve out a little bit of standalone value for himself. Even if not though, guys, Moss should not be leaving your fantasy benches thanks to the proven reality that he offers legit RB1 handcuff upside in the event of Taylor having to miss additional time. Speaking of running backs who have come out of absolutely nowhere to post legit RB1 production, it's hard to do this list without mentioning Rams running back Kyren Williams. The RB65 in preseason ADP, Williams has posted RB5 overall fantasy numbers after 3 weeks of action, thanks in large part to having the sort of every down role that again is just so rare in the modern NFL. Look no further than what he did in week 3. I understand the counting numbers weren't there, but guys, if you have a snap rate starting with the number 1, it's either really bad or incredibly awesome, and in this case, that 100% snap rate was objectively incredibly awesome. I get it. The one consistency with Sean McVay's RB usage over the years has been the general finicky inconsistency in which he's trusted one specific back for any prolonged period of time. All that said, guys, right now with this role, Kyren Williams is locked in as a usage-based RB1 in fantasy land inside of a Rams offense that has certainly smashed expectations through 3 weeks. And now we get to the week 3 superstar himself, Dolphins rookie running back Devin Achane, who, guys, has scored the 6th most fantasy points of 2023 after essentially playing 1 game of football. Absolute madness. It wasn't like the fantasy community wasn't aware who Achane was, but still, he only sported an RB41 ADP before the season started, undoubtedly not getting helped by both a shoulder injury and the reality that guys like Jeff Wilson and Salvon Ahmed, now both injured, were initially ahead of him on the depth chart. It's fair to criticize the Broncos defense's effort for portions of that absolute massacre last Sunday, but Achane did not rack up 234 yards and 4 touchdowns by accident. Even the return of guys like Jalen Waddle, Salvon Ahmed, and Jeff Wilson are unlikely to bump the electric rookie speedster fully off the field. This very likely was his best career fantasy performance. That said, don't be surprised if Achane continues to make the most out of his opportunities and remain steady as an RB2 in fantasy moving forward. Up next, we have Browns running back Jerome Ford, who has posted the 10th best fantasy production at the position, despite going off the board as just the RB58 in pre-week 1 ADP. Look, I fully understand that Ford would have been going a hell of a lot higher in drafts if everyone knew that Nick Chubb was going to unfortunately suffer that terrible injury. Get soon better, Nick. But at the same time, we can give Ford some credit for making the most out of his opportunities so far. I am not a fan of the sort of fantasy analysis that takes away a player's good plays and concludes that they're bad in the rest of the sample, specifically because of someone like Ford, who is truly making such great things happen, passing the eye test along the way. The 69-yard rush against the Steelers' reversing field was spectacular, and as we saw in week 3, he can catch the football too, putting on an absolutely filthy double move to break open and catch a touchdown from Watson in that contest. So, utilization numbers aside, we did see a little bit more Kareem Hunt and Pierre Strong Jr. than fantasy managers would have preferred. Ford continuing to make big plays is only going to be good things for his chances at getting more touches down the road. At a minimum, we are looking at a rock-solid RB2 in fantasy football land moving forward. And finally, we have Commanders running back Brian Robison, the current RB8 after boasting a preseason ADP as just the RB35. Now, with Robinson, this is big time usage based. He has racked up 20 plus touches in 6 of his last 8 full contests out there. There's a little bit of blowout concern, as we saw against the Bills. When this Washington team gets behind on the scoreboard, we're going to see a lot more Antonio Gibson than Robinson managers would prefer. All that said, guys, this is clearly an RB1 in a distant RB2 conversation in Washington, not nearly the sort of 1A, 1B committee that some of us, okay, me, thought was going to be the case back in August. So right now, Robinson, or anyone for that matter, looking at 20 plus touches per week is locked in as a top 20 option at the position. Expect some duds here and there when Washington can't stay competitive on the scoreboard, but God forbid this Sam Howell-led offense looks a little more like they did in weeks 1 and 2 as opposed to week 3 moving forward. Fantasy managers should continue to count on Robinson being one of the year's best values at the position. That's it from me, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments any other surprises that you've had, early on in the season at running back or elsewhere. And yeah, happy week 4. It's a great day to be great. Don't be afraid to go win some more fantasy matchups.